And now let's talk about the most controversial moment of this race. One source of annoyance that even got on the nerves, of the broadcast booth of Buxton, Bell, and Hinch. It was the delayed cautions. Rinus VK went for a spin. The caution came out a lap and a half later, allowing Palou, Colton Herta, and Joseph Newgarden to pit and not get caught out in the danger zone. But then again, we were under the impression that IndyCar had stopped doing that. Like when a car is in trouble or whatever, they wait for everyone to cycle through the pits, and then they throw the caution so no one gets caught out in that danger zone. But today, it looked like they reverted back to their old ways. And then we had another incident when Marcus Ericsson spun in a treacherous blind spot on the track, and it took IndyCar a long time to put out the caution. And that's when you really, so I heard the booth getting frustrated with IndyCar saying that caution needs to come out right now. It should have come. I think one of them said they believe it should have come out immediately because of how dangerous of a spot Marcus Ericsson was in, and they actually showed the onboard. But one of the drivers, you really could not see Marcus Ericsson over there until you come up the hill, right up on him. So there would be little time to, for you to react. If he was sitting right in the middle of the road there, a little bit further to the left. So Joe, I'm gonna start with you on this one. Do you feel race control dropped the ball today with this officiating?
They did drop the ball with the officiating, and I think this is just something where the drivers, the teams, they have to ask the series, what are we doing when it comes to cautions, full course caution, especially during the green flag pit stop cycles? Because at the end of the day, we know how teams had said, we don't want you to wait for everyone to get a chance out of this so-called danger zone. Just bring the caution out. It has to happen. Now, I can't help but notice the three cars that benefit the most were Alex Palou, Colton Herta, and Joseph Newgarden. I mean, if that caution had came out before they had all stopped, very different story. Alex Palou, either he had to stay out, be on older tires, but be at a disadvantage for the rest of the race, or pit, and then he does not have that track position no more. It could have been a big shakeup for those three drivers. So overall, it's just not a good deal because essentially it is race control manipulating the race by saying we're going to allow Rinus VK to sit there in the gravel pit. He may have the wheel spinning, but he's not going to get out. That gravel pit there was deep. For Marcus Ericsson's incident, I have no idea what race control was thinking. That was a very dangerous spot. They showed paddle awards on board, and you really did not see him until you got very close to him. Yes, there was a local yellow, so don't go side by side, but still, this is racing. Somebody goes do the same mistake Marcus Ericsson did and then collide with him broadside. IndyCar officiating will be getting a lot of heat from that. I just see this as a big mistake by race control. They have to own up to it. I don't want to hear, oh, well, they just didn't want to ruin the race because of the caution. No, the teams have said don't do that before. I think the fans unanimously have said don't do that before. What happened with Marcus Ericsson, they just simply dropped the ball, in my opinion.
Yeah, Joe, I really couldn't agree more. I feel like I've known IndyCar in my time watching it as a bit more of a avid fan of the sport over the last 5 or 6 years, to be a series that takes safety and procedures very seriously, because Roger Penske takes rules and procedures very seriously as a person and running his own other companies. And I feel like this season in general, and today especially, I feel like saying dropping the ball implies that it may have been an accident. I don't think it's an accident when you let a car sit in the gravel trap for a lap and a half to let green flag stops cycle through. That's just unacceptable. What would have happened if somebody also ran off in that same corner and hit Rinus VK and he got hurt? What happens then? These are the things that you have to think about as a sanctioning body and as an officiating body when these kinds of instances happen, and you should throw a caution. Yeah, I understand maybe giving him a minute to try to refire the car with the new hybrid component attached to the back that can allow for that, but after even like 3/4 of a lap, he's clearly not going to get going. So what are we waiting for? So yeah, I felt that was disingenuous on its own. But then you have the Ericsson accident. I don't see any reason why we didn't throw a caution out for that any sooner than we did. Like, I just feel like this is where officiating really could use a lot more like drivers and like former crew to really work that side of the sport, because in a spot like that where Ericsson was perched at the top of the hill there coming into the corkscrew, I mean, he may as well have been like at the start of the braking zone on the right side. And had somebody taken the natural line there, we could have been talking about a very grisly, very unfortunate incident to happen to that driver, and probably also to Marcus Ericsson. So while I'm glad that we were able to avoid absolute catastrophe today at certain points, I don't really like when we're even tiptoeing close to it, to be honest with you. And I felt that the two incidents today, we really started tiptoeing towards catastrophe, and we should be very thankful and wiping our brow that we avoided it today. But those kinds of mistakes, and I'm going to call them a mistake because I don't think they were misjudgments, those kind of mistakes can be tolerated going forward. And I really hope that Penske Entertainment takes today's miscues by heart and changes going forward throughout the rest of the season. But at the two ovals we're going to have left, that's really not going to be an issue, because if a car is spun out on an oval, you're definitely throwing a caution. So hopefully at Portland next week, if there are any incidents to speak of, we don't really have to go through this whole charade where we're talking about, driver safety and cautions being thrown at the right time, because Penske Entertainment and NTT IndyCar Series will come into next week with a much more focused race control than they came into this week with.
Well, Tanner, to piggyback off your point about the ovals, to be fair, remember what happened at Gateway with Louis Foster? They didn't throw the caution soon enough there, and look what happened to Joseph Newgard. And so I guess in that one instance, they could have, helped out a little bit by throwing the caution sooner there. So, but to your point, for the most part, when you see a car, getting sideways into the wall on an oval, you're going to throw the caution. But there with Louis Foster, they kind of held it a little too long there when they really should have gotten on it right then and there. But in this case, at Laguna Seca today, definitely have to agree with both of you. I felt like, race control, they can't do this moving forward, because they've been lucky, in cases in the past when the car's like sitting in an area on the track, needs to try to get going again. So far nothing has happened, but I have a feeling if they keep flirting with disaster like this, at one day, it's not going to go well, and then it's not going to look good for the series when a driver ends up getting hurt. And yes, Marcus Ericsson, while he was off the racing line there, you never know what could have happened. There could have been a battle exiting that corner. Then you see someone, go off to the right, and then Marcus Ericsson sitting there. And by the time you look up, there's no way you can possibly react. And then, we have a really bad situation going on. Thankfully, today with, the VK and Ericsson incidents, nothing terrible happened. But if race control, doesn't fix what happened today, one day you're not going to get lucky. And then it's going to be a real sad day in IndyCar when someone is injured.